Hello everybody, allow me to read some Top Gear scripture from the section flappy paddled robotised manuals, and I quote, "Have you ever tried to park one? Because you've got no clutch, you either roll into the car in front or drive at high speed into the car behind. They are rubbish, rubbish, rubbish." Lord Jeremy Clarkson, Series 6, Episode 5. And thus these words have soaked into the subconscious mind of a generation of petrol heads, car enthusiasts who've never owned a robotised manual, heck, never even driven one, will confidently stand there at a Cars and Coffee meet and say to you, "Oh, yeah, but they got a flappy paddle robotised manual, they're rubbish." But today in this video, we will be driving 3 incredible Italian robotised manuals. And in each car, I'll be making a different case as to why you need to challenge your misconceptions about the robotised manual. The Ferrari 612 Scaglietti with its F1 box, the Maserati Grand Sport with its Cambio Corsa, and the Maserati Gran Turismo S MC Shift. Because in this new digital world of electric motors and a self-driving future, it is my belief that at last the robotised manual popularity will rise among petrol heads. Come on, let's get into it. My name's Ben, and welcome to Dadcars. So let's kick things off in this, the Ferrari 612 Scaglietti. And the first argument for the robotised manual, which I think is perfectly demonstrated by this car, is value for money. So with Clarkson condemning the flappy paddled robotised manual throughout the noughties, you would think it would have had an effect on people choosing to buy them, speccing them in their new cars in the noughties. These V12 Ferraris were available with 2 transmission options. The F1 flappy paddle robotised manual, like I'm driving here today, and also a gated manual with 3 pedals. And so of the 3,000 Scagliettis that were made globally, what percentage do you think people opted for the manual? Half and half? No, it's actually less than 10%. Of 3,000, only 200 are manuals. And that, of course, means the manuals carry a massive premium over these. I've seen it in the classifieds over the years where, the manuals are as much as double the price of a car like this. And I've driven a manual Ferrari of the same era as this, a Ferrari 360. And don't get me wrong, if they were both the same price, I would pick the manual, but they're not. There's no way that this gearbox makes this worth like as much as half of the money. And I've got this scenario which I think has played out countless times over the years with petrol heads. Picture this, somebody comes to me and says, "Ben, I want to buy a V12 Ferrari, something with enough space in the back to take my children and go and do some European trips in. I want it to be modern enough to feel safe to use with my children, but really what I want is a classic Ferrari experience, something which is majestic." Yes, a 612 Scaglietti will be perfect for you. What's your budget? I could comfortably afford like 60 or 70,000 pounds, but it couldn't be one of those dreadful flappy pedal things. I've heard that they're rubbish. But because this hypothetical person doesn't have 100,000+ pounds, they don't buy their V12 Ferrari. They don't go and make those memories with their family. Instead, they buy some, performance German car, which on paper is better in every single way. And this scenario to me is a tragedy. And I can even imagine this hypothetical person going and test driving one of these for 15, 20 minutes and then coming back and thinking, "Oh no, look, I just can't gel with it." And yeah, look, I'll admit, you're probably not gonna gel with a robotised manual on a 15-minute test drive. You've got to spend a bit more time with it. And when you do spend that time with it, and you start to connect to this car, you connect to each gear change, you're very conscious and present in the moment, connected to this car, despite the fact it's only got 2 pedals. But in fairness to Top Gear, despite the fact that these being rubbish is what everyone remembers, what they actually used to say is that robotised manuals are fantastic on track, but just terrible day to day, sitting in traffic and that sort of thing. So using them as a daily is not a great idea. But nowadays, who is buying a car like this and using it as a daily? You've got to be pretty crazy to use a robotised manual as a daily today, right? So I guess that brings us on to the next car and the next point that I want to make. And for that, we're going to be using my car, my daily, but we're going to do it on another day when it's not raining. But let's skip forward to that now. Reason number 2 for reconsidering the Robotised manual. Some incredible cars were only available as automated manuals. The Jeremy Clarkson quote that I started this video off with was in an episode just after a section that Richard Hammond did a review of a Maserati Grand Sport on track, and he absolutely loved it. So just very quickly, the Grand Sport is the ultimate version of these Maseratis. The Maseratis that started with the 3200 GT, which had a 3.2 litre bi-turbocharged Maserati V8, which then later evolved into the Maserati Coupe, which most people refer to as the 4200 on account of the fact that it's got a 4.2 litre naturally aspirated Ferrari Maserati engine in it. The same engine that is in this. Now the 3200 and the 4200 were available with 3 pedals, a manual. But the Maserati Grand Sport, the car which addressed the issues with the 3200 and 4200, the Grand Sport tightened everything up notably. The steering is so much quicker to respond. And although the adaptive damper system in here isn't perfect, when you put it in sport, honestly, you feel so much more confident and planted on the road. But the Grand Sport came with only one transmission option, this 6-speed Cambrio Corsa Robotised manual, very similar to the F1 system that was in the Scaglietti. And because of this, I've no doubt that over the last 20 years, there has been countless car enthusiasts that have completely dismissed the Grand Sport as an option. You know, perhaps they drove one of the earlier cars, a 3200 or a Coupe, and just couldn't get on with it. However, if they gave the Grand Sport a chance, honestly, this is such an incredible thing to drive. The other example of a car which springs to mind to me, a very special car that only came with a Robotised manual, is the Aston Martin Vanquish 1, which I honestly believe is the best looking sort of semi-modern Aston Martin. You know, Aston Martins from my lifetime. I think the Vanquish 1 is the best looking. But those cars have always had a bad reputation on account of the fact that they only came with flappy paddle Robotised manual. Yes, I believe Aston Martin Works started offering manual conversions on the car because, you know, the reputation for them was so bad. But the Vanquish 1 is another example of a car. If you're being pig-headed and stubborn, saying, no, I wouldn't have one of those because it's got a Robotised manual, you know, you might be missing out on owning a truly exceptional and special car. You know, people go and test drive a car, say if they are interested in having a Grand Sport or a Vanquish 1, and then they get 20 minutes to drive it around the block. Perhaps they've even got the salesman from the dealership sat on the passenger side. And if it's your first time driving a Robotised manual, it's not a very nice experience first time. You know, if you're driving it in an auto mode, which is never advisable with these cars, you know, you do the nodding dog, because if you're used to a ZF torque converter, which is pretty smooth, you know, as you're sort of moving along, the car starts changing gear when you're not expecting it, and then you kind of like, yeah, you nod your head forward. And unless you are really giving it a blast, which is where I believe these boxes really come into their own, you know, I can imagine at low speed, you know, driving around, trying to change at the right time, and it kind of being a bit janky and jerky. And it's quite an uncomfortable and even perhaps embarrassing experience. Kind of makes you feel like you don't know how to drive, like you're a learner driver. And if you've got somebody sat next to you, I imagine you very quickly turn around, head straight back to the dealership, throw the keys back at the salesman and spit on the floor. No, they're rubbish. I can see all of this playing into the narrative around Robotised manuals as well. But spend a little bit more time with these cars and you realise, yeah, look, you just use the paddles. You change gear yourself. And in time, you don't even realise that you're doing it. It does become a second nature. Which brings us on to reason number 3 and car number 3. Reason number 3, engagement. whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought we were going to be driving a 4.7 Gran Turismo S MC Shift. Well, surprise, 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 surprise. That Maserati is back in the workshop because it needs more work doing. I saw it last week and it was up on a ramp and it didn't have any wheels on it. But that will come as no surprise to anyone who has seen the cost confessions of a Maserati Gran Turismo owner video on my channel. I was supposed to be getting behind the wheel again, my good friend Joe's Gran Turismo, a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, look, it's back in the shop. But anyway, I can talk about reason number 3, engagement, because I have driven an MC Shift Gran Turismo and I've also driven a ZF torque converter Gran Cabrio. Now the ZF box is going to be a lot easier to live with, and sort of over long-term ownership it will also be a cheaper thing as well, because obviously with robotised manuals you have the added expense of replacing the clutch. Look, driving right now at low speeds, going from 3rd to 4th, just ever so slightly lift off the accelerator as I pull the pedal. And this is something which I don't actually even think about doing now, because I've had this car for what, 5 months, and I've just got used to it. And when you are really giving this a blast, you leave your foot in, all the way down, and it does an incredible job of gear changing. And yes, those gear changes are a little bit ferocious and there is a bit more mechanical connection that you can feel through the seat of your pants, but goodness me, talking about engagement, is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing that there's more drama involved in this? And this is why I would pick an MC Shift Gran Turismo over a ZF torque converter. But look, I've got respect for those who back 20 years ago, you know, when these cars were brand new, you know, they were complaining back then about, oh God, why would you want a robotised manual? I want to have 3 pedals and change the gear myself. I can respect this, okay? Yeah, because, you know, they didn't like the fact that, well, I don't want a robot disengaging and re-engaging the clutch. You know, I'll do that myself. I want to feel more in tune with the car. I completely agree. I can understand. But when we stay into a future of cars where there's a robot that will accelerate for you, a robot which will brake for you, and heck, there's even now a robot which will steer for you. Having these hugely depreciated and very special robotised manual cars available for you to buy today, and oh, what, you can feel a mechanical gear change, you can feel it clunking, it's not as smooth as a ZF torque converter, but I think there's something nice about that. You know, I think this going forward is what people are going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for mechanical experience. And that's why, surprisingly for me, at the start, I found it alarming that I could, oh God, I can feel the gear changes. But now I actually really enjoy it, even when I'm driving around at low speeds. And right now, I'm literally right now going to pick it up my daughter from preschool, because I've just seen the time and I've ran over. So yeah, look, now I've finished my little blast. It started raining, it's dreadful. I've still got it in sport mode as I'm going over this horrible bit of tarmac. But I'm still enjoying this now, which I didn't think. You know, when I started off, when I first got this car, the first video I made, which was, you know, buyer's remorse about this car, it was a bit of a culture shock initially, but I thought I'd be looking forward to getting rid of this robotised manual. But in truth, I've grown really fond of them. I love robotised manuals. How was preschool, sweetie?
Good.
It was good? Yeah. Right, should we head home? Open the door. Oh, bless you. I'll tell you what, I won't open the door today because, yeah, it sounds better when you open the door, doesn't it? But we won't, because it's very, very rainy out there. Is it a good thing that Daddy picked you up in the car? So look, in summary, my advice is reconsider your position on robotised manuals, because you know, your dream car might be affordable, because it might be cheaper than the manual equivalent, and consider some of those cars that you've dismissed up until now because they've only been available as a robotised manual. And if you do get yourself a car with a gearbox like this, I think you, like me, will likely be surprised at just how much enjoyment you can get from the additional engagement. And look, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.